Welcome everyone to How to Raise 54 million US dollars by Varjo and the Factory. Before we start with the exciting story, my name is Raja Skogland. I'm the CEO at TheFactory Academy, where we help startups get access to a network, knowledge, and capital. We work closely with our startups during our accelerator programs, which last approximately 4 months, where we do our best. We do whatever it takes to help you access to the right business partners, to help you access to relevant mentors, workshops, knowledge, business strategies. We try to help you with your structure, set KPIs together, and help you get traction and get investor ready. So if you are a startup now who doesn't know about us or our accelerator programs and is interested in getting help, please get in touch with me. We have some accelerators starting soon, or get in touch with Simon, our program director, for more details, and we can just explain how we work with our startups, what we can do for you. This session today is really for you to make the most of it. Varjo is an exciting company. I'm not sure we can call you a startup anymore. And you have gone through many rounds. You have done things a bit differently from what we usually see. So I really look forward to you sharing as much as possible on the hacks, on the strategies, on the structure, and what made you different from the others. Before we start another thing, please, for those who are listening and joining us, we will leave the last 20 minutes approximately for you to interact as directly your questions to the founders or to myself, if you have any questions relevant to the accelerator, for example. But here especially, make the most of Varjo, of the founders of Niko and Urho, to get to understand better how they have done things. Talk about your startup, tell us what's the challenge you're facing, and let's see how they can help you. So use the chat, post your questions. You can already start from now, and at the end, you will have the opportunity to interact with them. Okay, that's it for me. Thank you. Niko and Urho, please tell us about yourself and the story of the company.
You start, Niko.
All right. Hey, thanks, Urho. So my name is Niko. Also, as said, together with Urho, we were the two original founders. We came up with an idea which was fairly straightforward and fairly clear. So we wanted to do virtual reality in a mixed reality mode, which means that you use cameras as a see-through device when wearing a virtual headset. So you're seeing reality through the camera view. And instead of augmented reality, which is a third category of devices in this virtual domain, in augmented reality devices, you look at the world through an optical device. So you see the reality as you would be seeing through a regular eyewear. And then you mix virtual content on top. In virtual reality, you look at the display and you look only at the virtual content. And what we had in mind was a mix of these two devices, which we call mixed reality, which allows you to see the reality through a camera view, aka you have the same pixels for reality and for virtual. And that allows you to do very different things than with the devices out there on the market today. And from a background perspective, we both worked at Nokia and Microsoft for a very long time. We have been working quite a bit in the domain previously. So I have been working on diffractive optics at Nokia, and Urho was running a virtual reality headset project that never came to the market at the time as well. So that's kind of the background. But maybe Urho, if you can continue from here and maybe put a little bit more flavor on kind of what makes our mixed reality so special.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, as said, we had been working at Microsoft. So we'd been working with the HoloLens team and Microsoft research guys, and the idea about treating the world as pixels, basically saying that we just digitize the world super fast and then we can do whatever we please because it's only data from that point onwards. It was one of those philosophical debates within Microsoft. And obviously, as you can see, the optical see-through paradigm won at Microsoft. So that's how you see the HoloLens 1 and 2 to come about, but it was like an inspirational dialogue from our point of view, because we believe that when you actually want to do transformative technology in the areas of, for example, training and design, you need to be able to have that perfection of the image, and that's what the video see-through based mixed reality provides. So you have that as great an digitization of the world as you can achieve, and then you add on top of that one or remove pixels and change the world to your liking. And when we started the company, we thought that, okay, this is like trajectory-wise super interesting. We had been working a lot in phones as well, so we knew that cameras are actually stellarly good these days, and you can push the limits over the time of those. And then we had the thought that really to make this interesting, also the display quality needs to be elevated to a totally different level than these consumer grade headsets. But this is now talking about the time that we actually started rolling with the company. Where we started the company was at the almost ad hoc meeting with Lifeline investors. Lifeline is Finnish VC, famous for Supercell. They also have been participating in this Unity IPO now recently. So I think they have now 2 big stars in their color now to brag about. But anyway, we met these guys with Niko.
So let's go back a little bit.
Yeah.
So you were working at Microsoft. You saw an opportunity that you discussed with Niko. And then what? You left Microsoft, or you met already these VCs? How? Yes.
No, Microsoft had discontinued the operations in Finland. And Niko and me, we were touring with some Finnish VCs, looking at angles that should we actually become VCs? And so joined that side of the domain. We had done so many products in our past. I think Niko has something like 20 product programs in his belt or under his belt, and I've been doing like high-end phone concepting for 5 or 6 years with roughly a dozen such type of things in my past. So it wasn't obvious that we want to be starting off a company. Now, we had done a great demo, but that was it. It was like just a demo of this video see-through based mixed reality. And then we land in Lifeline's office, and maybe you take that dialogue, Niko.
Yeah, so we actually, I mean, to get funding in general, and this is again a little bit jumping, in my opinion, you need 3 things. You need to have a good story, and the mixed reality story was really great. And I just want to add a little bit more to tickle your brains a little bit. So with mixed reality, when you have a virtual object in reality, you can have the virtual object show light reflections from the real room, right? So if you have a lamp on the ceiling, you can see the reflection on the virtual object of that lamp, and the virtual object can cast virtual shadows into the real room, and the real window can cast the virtual shadow of the virtual object. So it's kind of really mind-blowing what you can do with the technology. So we had a great story regarding what we were interested and what we thought would make sense. We also had a little bit of technical innovation that we were able to show. So
you mentioned that you mentioned that Urho came up with a prototype in 24 hours after. So you had this idea.
Yeah, I mean, we were visiting another startup called Umbra, and Umbra is focusing visualization of really high fidelity 3D content, and we were looking at their content, and it would look so much better with the mixed reality type of device. That's kind of what we're thinking together with Urho, and Urho is really fast, and he built the first prototype in 24 hours. He's humble, he's saying 48 hours, but I remember it was 24 hours. You were that fast. So nevertheless, when we visited Lifeline, we thought it would be nice to show this prototype, and it would, because it first of all, it shows the innovation, it was matching the story, and then it gave us credibility, and also obviously our background from Nokia, Microsoft is another kind of big factor giving us credibility. So those 3 things were really key.
So I'm going to try to sum up for everybody to follow because it's a lot of technical terms and maybe not everyone is familiar with mixed reality. So you had an idea. I'm just like shortening it, summing it up.
Yeah.
So you had an idea. You came up with a prototype, and at that time you were actually exploring the VC scene, and you were in touch with this company to do a tour with them. And you presented your prototype to them. You discussed it with them, right?
Yes.
Okay. And what happened then?
Yeah. So
what were you expecting? What was the...
They requested us that they would be in if we would set up a company around this prototype. And that was not something we were pitching, actually. We just brought it to show that we can actually pull off stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's like there is a classical saying: if you go asking for advice, you get money, and if you go asking for money, you get advice. And I think what actually happened was quite close to that one. We were kind of like asking, how do we get to the VC scene? What should we be doing? And then we ended up with offer. Yeah, it was like, okay, how much money do you need? And we had just been doing a totally different idea for a hardware company with a different bunch of people, and there we had done a little bit of math that to be able to have the first like run of any kind of hardware project, it'll take $1 million. So then it was one of the partners of Lifeline, Petteri Ahopelto, asks, how much money do you need? I'm like, we need at least $1 million.
$1 million?
If we don't have $1 million, there is no sense to even start. So $1
million US, right?
Well, euros, but whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, it was close enough. And then it takes like not even a fraction of a second, and he goes, okay, so $1 million. So when can you guys have a founding team?
Mm-hmm.
Can you do it next week? And this was basically at the Midsummer's Eve. I think we were just about to go to the midsummer festivities.
Yep.
Okay, good. You made a good deal of 1 million euros just before going.
And Niko had just read a book, How to Make Your First Million Outside of Silicon Valley, which was of course totally useless book.
Raise.
Oh,
not make.
raise.
We are not yet there. I haven't made a million.
Do you recommend that book? Yeah. Niko, do you recommend that book?
Yeah, I think it was a good book. I mean, easy read, typical US book in that sense. You can read it really fast.
Venture Deals is also, of course, mandatory reading for everybody.
So, okay, they asked you to start a company. They asked you to get a team. They were ready to fund you. And because you actually managed to raise more money quite quickly after that. And when we talked a few days ago, you were spectacular in the way you mentioned testimonials and how to get validation from the market. So how did you, please tell us more about that.
Yeah, I can go through the 8 round, because when we were walking down the stairs from Lifeline, so we've just heard that, okay, you guys have $1 million, and agreement was that Niko becomes the CEO. That was like agreed there. Niko whispers to me in the staircase, Urho, you need to know something. I'm not going to be able to be the CEO. I have just signed a deal with somebody else. I'm like, bah! And then we had to figure out how to proceed from that one. And then I was the interim CEO until Niko was able to join in like a year and a half later. So I was kind of like keeping the seat warm for Niko in that sense. But in the meanwhile, we started the activities of the company 1st of September. So it took a while to get the money wired to the bank, have all of the deals made, all of the paperwork. And of course, it's like summer vacation time, so nothing happens fast and so forth. So 1st of September, we have the office, we have the furniture, we have the equipment we bought from the remains of Microsoft at Finland. So really cheap, great quality stuff. And we start work. Good. So it's all about research, how to make the human eye resolution display possible 10 years before it would be possible otherwise, and looking into how to create these high fidelity video streams and all that jazz. So time really flies, like the best time of your life. You're innovating, you're free, it's super great. And then we half a year has passed, and we are at the stage that, okay, now we have the thing. we have a prototype that is really good, human eye resolution VR, stellar. We hired a great marketing guy, Jussi Mäkinen, who started building the brand when the company was 4 months old. And with him, we made the strategy in the beginning of 2017 that we are now going to establish credibility on the market by showing this prototype to the right audience. And with that one, we have the testimony that the market is going to say that this is mind-blowing, and that's the thing that will help us get the A round done. Okay, so this was March, and then we said in March that, okay, we hear that rounds take 4 months time. Okay, so let's make it so that our goal is that by the end of June, the round is complete, and then we start preparing for this, and we start preparing for a press tour. We hire the best PR agency in the world, Horizon PR, and the guy in there like knows everybody in the technology sector, and the New York Times is the CNNs and so forth. So what he does is that he invites me into a Facebook group with his contacts. He writes there, a stealth startup coming to San Francisco and New York on this week, bigger than Magic Leap. Do you want interview? And then it was like literally 5 minutes, and we had the cream of the technology press, of the mainstream press, all saying, "Hep, I want the interview." And then that's the way that we got to present the technology. Now, of course, it was really mind-blowing. So we got plenty of articles. Finnish startup comes and shows the future of VR and mixed reality. And that's the kind of thing that when you have 100 articles like that.
From which newspaper did you get?
Well, like New York Times, Engadget, The Verge, the CNN, Wired, like everybody in the sector, BBC and so forth. It was like mind blowing for a startup that pretty much had run out of money by then. So we got the best possible hotels, like $5,000 a night suites at the places, and those were like pretty much the final money of the company at that stage. We had created a fantastic video showing the vision of the company. Again, high quality, 20 people working on the film crew. Again, like really emphasizing that we want to appear as the billion-dollar company from the get-go. When we go out, we won't look as a tiny startup, but like what we would look like as a Microsoft. If Microsoft would be showing this, that's what we want to appear. So we have this kind of like aura at that stage. And with that one, all of the press materials came at the beginning of June, right at the time that we were just finalizing the deals with the VCs. So of course we had met like tens of VCs, of course, and then that's the time that just on the time that they need to say that yes, we are going to give you guys the term sheet. That's when the press lands. So
usually startups, they go get testimonials from customers in the beginning. You went to get customers testimonials actually from big brands, big names to validate you, to support you.
Yeah. So that was the B round. A round was only technology press because we didn't have a product; we had a technology.
Yeah.
But that landed us equity ventures, like one of the most renowned VCs in the Nordics. So really great guys. Ted Persson joining us on the board. Like he's a super great marketing guy, and we started immediately discussing when they joined us, how do we do the next round? That was like instantly when A round was complete, we started focusing. So what's going to be the B round? Because we had agreed that this money from the A round will not take us to the market. It will take us only to the phase where we have the product complete, but it will not have enough money for us to kick off factory in China, because that will be like a next level of operation. So good, like everybody being aware that we have runway of 1 year, like almost to the day. And during that time, we need to create the product, hire a much, much larger team, because we were like, 15 people at that stage. And so kind of create a company that is able to build products build the product, and then at the same time raise the money. And to that end, of course, we had great contacts. We hired people really fast. Product got started. We got a great product out. Niko was actually joining at roughly at that stage and led the product creation. So he's such a multi-talent that he was able to really ramp all of our product making know-how. Then we made 100 units of that product in the factory in China, and shipped those to software partners like Autodesk. Like, we had met all of these guys, we had shown them the tech previous year, and then we said that we have now a product coming out. You guys get the exclusive access to the beta for free. The device is worth like 10 grand. You guys get it for free as long as you make the software work with our headset. And the same thing for simulation companies and so forth. And so
yeah, but maybe just to add on a little bit the twist on that one. So I think Timo came up. Timo was our COO and currently our CEO. So Timo Toikkanen. So Timo came up with this idea of building a triangle so that there would be a customer who would get the product, and let's say a large automotive OEM. And then once the automotive OEM is convinced that this actually might be useful for them, they would actually request their software vendors to provide support for this product. And let's say it would be very hard for a startup to go to a large software vendor providing professional enterprise software to a large automotive OEM. You go scratching their door and say, hey, we have this great product. Your customers might like it, but you would need to do some work to support it. I mean, the response is usually pretty blunt, that yeah, come back when you're a bit bigger. But with this triangle approach, that it's actually their customer requesting their software to support a Varjo device. That's how we got this going. And we had several of these type of triangles ongoing simultaneously with the help of the first 100 prototypes.
So how did you do that?
Provided us.
How did you do that? How did you make sure that the customers were actually requesting?
Well, we met these companies.
Yeah.
So
we met these companies. We provided them a pitch of kind of why Varjo human solution, why Varjo mixed reality makes a lot of sense. And if you Google up Varjo and Volvo, for example, you get a great example of how Volvo wants to use mixed reality. They're actually driving an existing car, and they can change the interior of the car, the future car model, while they're driving it, and they can start testing it. So they had a great idea. They knew what they wanted, but they obviously needed also the software support for it, as one example. And that's how we got these triangles going.
Something else that I found interesting when again we had a little chat before today to prepare this session. You mentioned that in terms of innovation and intellectual property, you were very cautious, and you hired actually someone to take care of your patent and have that secured as one of your very first employees. So can you tell us about this?
Sure. I mean, we used to work for Nokia and Microsoft, and traditionally Nokia, for example, has been very strong from an IP perspective. So we were very familiar how it works. What's an invention report process? How do you file as an employee an idea? How it gets reviewed, and what happens after that? How it gets filed, and what's the patent process? So we wanted to replicate that fairly early on. So we had a mechanism in place so that employees could actually write down their ideas, and they would be processed. And we are not IP experts with Urho. So we found a nice company. We've been using a company called Moose-Dog for our IP work, and they take care of it holistically. They participate in our patent reviews when we decide what idea makes sense to patent and what not. So we had that process, and then we just copied it from existing processes that we were aware of. But that's important to get rolling. I mean, if you don't get the rolling, if you don't document your innovation, it's hard to file afterwards later on, even if you would have the prior art and to some extent. So it's, in our case, it was super good that we started early, and obviously in these fundraising discussions,
exactly,
it helps that you can show that you actually IP asset already as well.
Yeah, on the A round, we had already had our core patents for this human eye resolution. They had been approved in US Patents Office in 4 months from filing. So it's like a record time. So that when you have something like this, that you can say that, oh, by the way, our innovation is fully protected already. It has been approved at US Patents Office. It's not a filing, it's approved. That's when you have a solid background saying that, okay, you guys actually own now the technology. So it's a great thing to do, and it's, by the way, one of those tiny tips and tricks. If you need to have a patent approved fast at the US Patents Office, there's a process called fast track. You basically pay off, I think, $1,500, and you bypass the queue of 2 million application. They will handle your application next, which is like mind-blowingly cool. It's for bigger companies, they actually want to prolong this process as much as possible. But as a startup, if you need to have that validation that, yes, we actually own this, it's money well worth spent. So 1,500, and then super cool.
We have actually a question, so I'm going to take it. We have a question from Orsi saying, what would you do differently if you could start again, all over again? Is there anything you would do differently? No, you've done every execution in a great way.
Like none of the bigger lines could change. You always have the things that you wish you would do slightly differently, but I think for how to create the company, it was pretty perfect from our point of view. How do you feel, Niko?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say kind of from a term sheet perspective, I think we've learned a lot during the course on what it actually means to negotiate these type of term sheets. So I think we would perhaps be a bit more strict on kind of on the terms if we would now set up another company. But all in all, I think we did fairly fine, kind of from that perspective.
Can you give some examples? What would you do when it comes to the term sheet then differently?
Well, all those things that usually you're not familiar with an early kind of early founder or first time startup founder, like liquidation preference clauses, who has priority at what stage. So it's quite mind blowing, and obviously there are books you can read about them, but even then it's a different story when you're really negotiating, and your sole aim is to get the deal done so that you can live a little longer. So it's fairly easy to kind of say yes to a few of those requests along the way, and I guess we would now be capable of maybe getting slightly better terms. Maybe not. I mean, it's always it's a really intense situation when you're doing a funding round. I mean, it's really a tactical game, so to say, that you're playing, and then you have the end goal, which is pretty concrete, and you have to win one way or the other.
Yeah, I think the one thing that we would have definitely been able to do is creating preferred common stock. So for the founders to have that slight preference level on top over the common stock. It also allows you to be a bit more free when giving the stock to your employees, and it elevates you in the well, when you do it right, it elevates you in the liquidation preferences and so forth into a bit higher level. So those kind of things, it's not the super game changer, but I think that would be worth. It's a common practice now in Valley, but wasn't 4 years ago.
So it's a common practice that the founders have preferential shares?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And who can help in this very early stage? Can a startup, do you think a lawyer would be a good asset to have on their side when they enter this type of negotiations? Or what type of company can help them?
Well, I think in our case, I think even though it's really strange, we got most help from the actual investors. So I have to really kind of provide credit to our early investors, so they really are investor friendly. Some investors say that they're investor friendly, but that the action is the complete opposite. So in our case, I'd say we got the best advice and the best help from the actual investors. So it was really a kind of, in our case, the initial funding of the company was really a joint game. So we wouldn't have started the company without the seed investors' lifeline. So in that sense, we were from the very beginning, we were all in together in it. And it's once you have, and those investors usually they have a track record, they've set up their own companies, and they obviously they look at the world from their side. So if you're that lucky as we were, then I think you're really well off. If you have to get funding from maybe a bit more aggressive investor, then it really pays off to have a good network of people you can ask questions, and usually co-founders or kind of other founders, they do have the attitude that they are willing to help and help answer especially of these tricky questions that a new founder might have.
It's true, yes. Asking others who have been through the same process is always valuable to hear their experience. So we talked about your A round. In general, what do investors want to see? What makes you trustworthy as a team and as a company?
Yeah. So for the A round, it was the the testimonials from the past, then the credibility that we received from this triangle relations from the customers and the big boys of the software side. And then, of course, at that stage, we actually had a product. So we basically had perfect execution of that single unit that we could show to the investors. Here, we want to bring this to the market. It needs a factory to build it. Just like in the automotive, the last year of the car making or designing process is designing and making that factory that makes the car. So it's like whenever you go to the consumer electronics, it's actually a really big effort to make that happen. So great. This is what we want to have. This is what everybody says about the product. They say mind-blowing. Can you hear? It's mind-blowing. And the market is this big. And now we need money to actually take that to the market. And that was the pitch that we traveled all over the world, seeing VCs and hearing quite often the message. For example, in USA, the message was, we typically don't invest in European companies. Or it was that we typically don't invest in hardware startups. Or it was, we don't invest in pre-revenue companies at this valuation. And that was, it wasn't the only message, but these three themes was a very common thing to hear. And of course, the best cases were when we heard these before we met the investors, so as not to waste time. But great. So eventually we did find one US VC, one European VC, EQT Ventures. And then when we met EQT, it felt like we have an immediate connection. Like we had with Lifeline, we had the same with EQT. So suddenly like, okay, with them, we will be working together to change the world. And then for the B round, when we were then looking for this bigger money, that's the time that Atomico joined in, and with Niklas himself, when he put the headset on that we were showing, he puts it on, and you can see that his whole posture changes, and that's the moment that you realize that, okay, now this is going to be something that we will at least take to the next level. But eventually it was a couple of days and the deal was signed, and that was it. So you need to be able to show very concretely to the investors. Ted Parson was, he had a great blog post a couple of days ago, which was that startup founders typically think that they need to look like bankers to the investors, showing graphs and showing showing this kind of very mathematical models of the things that they're really not perhaps the best people to do. So they need to show what they have done. They need to show the product, the concrete things, and be passionate about that one. And that's basically what we were all about in the the A and B rounds as well. That of course changed when we had revenue, which was the C round, and Niko was running that whole project. I was finally myself coasting around, because the raising money, it's great, but it's not the best of times, right? It's really stressful. You have typically a hard deadline and so forth. And I got the luxury of standing back from the C round and enjoying the views, enjoying the process, joining a few calls every now and then. But then it was all Niko who was driving that one. So.
Yeah, and if you think about kind of A and B was demonstrating our capabilities and trying to prove that we can do it. We know how to do products. We have the background. We have the Nokias and the Microsoft. We know how to do this. Yes, we will know how to do this, and we will pull it off roughly on time. C round was, we have proven. We have the first products on the market. We have shown that we can actually deliver. I mean, for a startup, it's a big thing to get on the market, and we were able to scale. So we were, during C round, we were almost in 40 countries. So we had the sales organization, we had the logistics. I mean, when you're delivering physical products, it's the back end work that you need to do is the customer support, the repairing products out there. It's a huge task, and we had that proof. So the question actually changed more towards, okay, is there a market? Is this real? Will there be enterprises shifting towards mixed reality as part of the day-to-day duties when they're working? And that was kind of really, from my perspective, the big change from A and B.
Thank you. Interesting. And I also see that we have some questions, so I want to give the opportunity to the entrepreneurs to ask these questions. Frank asked, how many big investors do you have? Are they all shareholders? How many investors do you have?
We have roughly maybe 15 investors these days. Out of those, we have 3 big ones, which are Lifeline, EQT, and Atomico. Then we have on the C round, we had Tesi, which is like a Finnish industrial investment arm. Them joining as a lead investor. And these are our biggest investors at the moment. You could say that EQT, Lifeline, and Atomico are roughly equal-ish, slight variations. But then we have smaller funds as well, like the VR fund from Silicon Valley. Now that we decided that we're taking the money from Europe predominantly, we decided on the A round that we're going to take some smaller VCs from Silicon Valley to have a bit of access to that network of companies and that buzz and so forth. So VR fund, presence capital, and these sort of things. So we have that kind of smaller funds also on the cap table.
After now 4 years, right? You started in 2016.
Yeah.
Are you still majority shareholder in the company, like the founding team? Do you still have 51% of the company?
No, we don't.
Just so we know.
Yeah.
We have another question. How did you find the right investors for your project?
Well, you had to meet a lot of investors quite often. Like I would say that, especially in the A round, we had a bit of like options that you could choose from what kind of fit we might have with different VCs. But really, the chemistry and this was the thing that Nick was saying, that if you can find an investor that is actually going to walk together with you, it's invaluable throughout your journey, because they will help you in so many ways. And one of the biggest ways is that they really are the key to making a next investment round happen. So that's a huge thing. But really, for us, a lot of the introductions came from the VCs to the potential investors.
And how many VCs or investors have you been meeting approximately per round, just to give an idea to to the entrepreneurs who are listening?
Well, I'd say, yeah, I didn't count the C round, but I'd say between 50 and 80 investors.
50 and 80.
Yeah,
to pull together. Yeah, somewhere there. I think it's below 100, but it's fairly close to 100. So it's a grind.
It's a grind, and I'd say physically maybe 20 to 30 meetings.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
Fun.
Intense, and it's good to be reminded that it's actually it's a numbers game as well.
Yeah.
So we have a question.
It takes always more time than you think. Yeah.
Question from West. In the next 10 years, do you think AR will be used daily by most people, like how we use our phone? Will it be a mix of VR and AR? From a regular person's perspective, how ubiquitous do you think these technologies will become in our daily life?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's kind of I personally think about it from two different perspectives. I mean, one perspective is will we work partially in AR or mixed reality, and that's definitely the answer is yes. And it's very similar to what happened with the computers. I mean, you start using them at work, and then they transfer as equipment you use at home, first to work at home, and then you start to use them for other entertainment purposes. So the answer, at least from my perspective, is yeah, definitely we will be working in mixed reality part of our time in 10 years from now. Whether we will be wearing an AR glass or AR device permanently in 10 years from now, I'm not so sure. Maybe you would answer that part.
No, I'd say not, but really that you have part-time use for sure is going to be happening. The value that you get is so high. And just like with the computers and the phones and laptops and so forth, none of these new technology paradigms has replaced the old one. So when the phone came, you could say third compute paradigm, it didn't take away the desktop computing paradigm. And when the graphical user interface, that didn't replace fully the text interface. So it's like they typically coexist, and that's the way it's going to be also for mixed reality of the future.
Thank you. Okay, another question. Cool. What companies do you admire at the moment? Can be anything from strategy, product vision.
I'd say I'm always admiring Apple's products, but as thinking about like a startup, I think what Elon Musk has done is pretty fantastic, considering that not only creating such huge changes overall in the different industries of space travel on the future of like a movement with the electric cars and so forth, but also keeping a very strong helm at that one, because both of those probably would have crashed and burned in some sense if there would have been like always looking for consensus on what to do next. So he has been a pretty strong leader, and when you do world-changing things, you need to have that kind of like a single-minded vision, because otherwise you scatter and it simply won't happen. So maybe it's a boring answer, but
and I think for my perspective, kind of in our domain, I have to say that I do admire at this point kind of what Facebook is doing in the VR world. So I mean, I was fairly disappointed a couple of years back. It seemed that they're stalling and not necessarily doing exactly the right things, but there is really some strategy behind what they're doing and pushing, especially to the low end consumer market. And I think that's, for me, I think they're doing a lot of right things, and perhaps we could help them a little bit on doing a few other things right as well at some point. But otherwise, I think they've been doing a great job recently.
Oh.
Two other questions. Were there any support grants by Finland Helsinki?
Yeah, so even from the get-go, basically, the first million was a couple of days later when we heard the full pitch from Lifeline. They said that, okay, we are actually not going to give you guys $1 million, but we'll make sure that you get the rest of it from the Finnish Innovation Fund, or Tech Business Finland these days called. And yeah, we got 360,000 at that stage from there. Really great. We couldn't have done it without that. Then we got later a grant of 5 million from Business Finland. We got 2 million grant from Horizon 2020 from Europe, European Commission. I think it's called Horizon Europe these days. And then we have received additional funding still from Business Finland that we have not announced yet.
Yeah, so it's the mix, right? So I mean, these things build on top of each other. I mean, if you get VC funding, it's very straightforward. The mechanism usually in kind of these type of grant type of funding, or kind of grant type of loans, it's built in that if you have VC funding, you have proof and credibility, and it's easier to get. And vice versa, it helps if you have also non-dilutive funds to get new VC funding as well.
Another question. Okay, we're going to speed up. We have 10 more minutes, and I want to make sure we help everybody or answer all the questions. Do you have any advice on hiring people for your company? Where do you find the right people?
So we had the model that for all of the developers, one of our founders, Ville Miettinen-Vili, he's the grand old man of Finnish graphics scene. So he made a coding challenge from the very beginning of the company, and every single developer must complete that one. It's rather simple when you think about it. It's a couple of hours worth of your time, but the way that you complete it tells a bunch of yourself. There is no instruction how to do it. It's only a problem. You can do it in your language that you want, but you need to return the code the way that you would do it normally, and that has been our way of securing the quality of the competence level. But then really you need to do very diligently make sure that you have the right chemistry fit, because when you work in a startup, it's not always rosy times, and you will need to ask from the people of really serious commitment and do the crunching sometimes and so forth. And if you don't have the right fit, then that's going to be very toxic when somebody starts complaining about these things, and because that's contagious, and you need to be very certain that everybody understands the journey that they're about to take and has the full commitment. Niko, you have probably additional.
But also the good. So I mean, I think the fact that we were brand building early on helped also on the recruitment side. So it actually, usually when we had a big launch or kind of a lot of press coverage, we also saw quite a good inbound interest from an employee perspective. Mm-hmm. So those things go hand in hand as well. So being able to attract the right and the best skill set is super difficult for a startup. And I think especially in the Silicon Valley, if somebody of you have tried to set up a startup or hire, especially from abroad, engineering teams, and there it's pretty much impossible. You're fighting against great companies having fantastic benefits and great paychecks and great bonus programs. So either you're really super cool and you have a really super cool story that those employees can think that they can build their own career on top of for the future. Otherwise, you'll fail.
Indeed. A question from Heidi. Can you share more tips on how to convince investors when you only have a technology and not a product? Thanks.
When you have that one, you need to make sure that somebody else tells that it's a great technology. You cannot tell it because the investors are not domain experts ever, and they really don't have the time to become one just to please you and make that evaluation of you. So you need to have somebody that they will have trust to, that says that this is a fantastic technology. I think that's the best tip I can give.
Yeah, I mean, even in some cases we've gone through that there has been third party really researching our technology and providing to future potential investors a report whether we are innovative without technology is differentiating. So that's the other extreme kind of things that you might have to go through when trying to get funding, so that you basically share your technology to a third party so that it gets evaluated. And what Urho was saying, the third party recommendation is given.
Orsi is asking, in which country the company is registered in? Has this changed in the meantime?
So we didn't do Delaware flip. We are registered in Finland.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Question from West. How did you settle on the values behind your branding? Whose question?
Well, when I heard Jussi Mäkinen, who did our branding, I basically gave him free rein. Like he's launched so many products at Nokia, Microsoft. He led a couple of movie brandings and so forth. That at least I wanted to have him the full reign of building the brand. Now, interesting thing was before we had the first day of company, we were debating what's going to be the name of the company. And it was Niko's idea that won, but we spent weeks debating this one, trying to find what's going to be the web address and so forth. And then we had one of the founders creating that fantastic logo that you see today. And when he had made that one, that clicked on the Varjo branding, and it kind of like solidified this kind of very high-end look and feel to the whole brand that then Jussi took to the next level in the brand making.
Interesting. And what are the values of your company?
Do the impossible was what Niko said last time. So I think that still holds.
Yeah.
Do the impossible. I love it. Frank is asking, is 2020 your in-house media production?
No. It's I can certainly recommend them. They're a fantastic agency in Helsinki. Really moderate cost. I cannot tell of course the exact cost, but thinking about that, when we had only less than 100,000 in our budget, we commissioned 2020 to do a film in Thailand with a film crew of 20 people, and the cinematographer of the Hangover 2 running the show in there. So it's you basically get world-class quality with these guys with a very good pricing. So I do recommend. They're highly professional and very flexible company.
Interesting. So this company,
it was 2020 was actually a startup. Yeah, it was a startup. I mean, they created 2020 pretty much roughly at the same time when we started our branding effort, and they were actually within our premises for their first year. They were sitting in Varjo office because we had some free space. So one could say that it was in-house at some stage early on, not anymore.
Thank you. Cool. I tried to find their website, didn't find it easily. If you have it, it would be great to write it in the chat for everybody to check them out. Another question. Can you tell us why did you decide to register in Finland? I assume you were eligible for the Horizon 2020 and other grants because it's registered in Finland, but did you see any disadvantage due to this from US-based investors?
I think,
I mean, definitely. I mean, as Urho was mentioning earlier, I mean, kind of one of the three things was that, hey, we don't invest in European companies, and it has been, from that perspective, a disadvantage. But we wanted to set up a company in Finland. I mean, I think from a know-how perspective, Helsinki is a fantastic location. So we have a great game industry here, so a lot of graphical competences, and then we have the product making heritage that Nokia left behind. So we know how to make products, and still, I'd say for a few years we will still know, but then that know-how will vanish and disappear. But we were able to tap right into it. So these two things, the graphics and the product making, and that's what we need in Varjo. So location-wise, I don't think we could have selected a better place from an R&D perspective.
Yeah, it was also pivotal to get that full million. So Business Finland invests in Finnish companies, as you might imagine. So fulfilling that one was a mandatory requirement at that stage.
So we still have 3 minutes. if you have more questions. If anyone wants to tell about their idea and the challenge they're facing and get some tips from the founders, this is the moment. So otherwise, thank you so much. Okay, Frank says he got all his answers, so he's ready to to build a unicorn, right?
Yes.
Okay, one last question then, from Dimitris. What were your 3 main takeaways again when setting appointments with the investors?
I mean, setting appointments, I think it's really, you get the recommendation from somebody, or you get connected through somebody. I mean, that was really the key. Usually that's how the network built, right? And that's how we got our first investor meeting. So Umbra, where we were looking at the demo, their founder, Otto Mäkinen, he actually connected us with Petteri from Lifeline, and Petteri has been connecting us with pretty much most of the future investors after that we were able to get. So I think that's the main thing. You don't walk into an investment meeting without having been recommended. I mean, trying to call up an investor is most likely going to fail, or sending an email out of the blue, either via LinkedIn or just your email, usually doesn't work. So try to find somebody who knows somebody, and then get connected, and then after that you take over. That's how it goes.
Yeah. Also, if you go to the States, make sure that you have your calendar full. It's not worth going there every second week. So go there with the intent that you're going to nail an investor.
Yeah, but it's more like, I mean, Silicon Valley is slightly different. I mean, I think it's not very easy to fill up your calendar. Kind of another strategy is really just to be there and spend time and try to get ad hoc meetings while you're there. I found it really difficult to get, let's say, 2 weeks in advance, writing emails, say, I'm visiting Silicon Valley in 2 weeks from now. How does your schedule look like? It was very hard to get scheduled, but suddenly when you're there, and you kind of get into this kind of good roll of things, you start to pile up meetings on the go, and that seems to be how they tick more than pre-reserving slots beforehand.
Thank you, guys. That was super insightful. Thank you for your time. We are super grateful at the factory that you accepted to join and share your story. Super valuable advice. For those who are still with us, feel free to reach out to me or to Simon in my team if you are interested in getting more info about how we can help your startup, how we can help you get access to mentors, business strategies, general knowledge on how to get you investor ready, and coaching. We do a lot for our startups, and we work very closely with them. So thank you, everyone. I wish you all an amazing day, and I hope we will all stay in touch.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Raja. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Have a good day.